Namaskaram and welcome to one more episode on FOV Sense, and with your permission, I would like to start with a small story today. Donkey and tiger having a fight in the jungle. The donkey tells the tiger the grass is blue. The tiger replies, no, the grass is green. The argument becomes heated and they approach the lion. The donkey starts screaming, Your Highness, isn't it true that the grass is blue? The lion simply smiles and replies, If you believe it is true, the grass is blue. Now the donkey rushes forward and starts telling the lion, This tiger disagrees with me, he contradicts with me, he annoys me, you punish him right now. And the king declared, The tiger will be punished with 3 days of silence. The donkey jumps with joy and goes running into the jungle saying, The grass is blue, the grass is blue. The tiger questions the lion, Your Majesty, why have you punished me? After all, the grass is green. The lion replied, This has nothing to do with the question of whether the grass is blue or green. The punishment is because it is degrading for a brave, intelligent creature like you to waste time arguing with a donkey. And on top of that, you come and you bother me with this question just to validate something that you already know was true. The point I'm trying to make is, the biggest waste of time is arguing with the fool and fanatic who doesn't care about the truth or reality, but only the victory of their belief and illusions. Never ever waste time on discussions that make no sense. There are people who, for all the evidence presented to them, do not have the ability to understand. And others who are blinded by ego, hatred and resentment, and the only thing they want is to be right even if they aren't. So the point is, when ignorance screams, intelligence always moves on. Sri Krishna explains certain disciplines or conditions by following which one can reach the divine experience and live a life of supreme fulfillment. Freedom from pride and delusion. Pride and erroneous judgment indicate a false sense of importance or arrogance. These qualities always create mental preoccupations. The evils of attachments conquered. Mere sensuous way of life is nothing but a life wasted without realizing its nobler purpose. Ever dwelling in the self, detachment from worldly objects is not possible without attachment to precious ideals, as human equipment cannot function in a vacuum. However, to avoid attachment to evil, the seeker should divert his concentration to the self. Desires completely at rest. Now, this is a very important point. Desire is the activity of the intellect. To discipline the intellect, pleasures arising out of worldly objects, that should be discouraged. A mind without desire becomes very calm and very serene, released from the pairs of opposites. Now the pairs of opposites tormenting our mental equilibrium are joy and sorrow, pleasure and pain, loss and gain, success and failure, honor and dishonor. The mind is the focal point at which these pairs of opposites are contracted. Once the mind recognizes the pair of opposites, it likes that which is agreeable and hates which is disagreeable. This continuous process of liking and disliking, it destabilizes the mind. So it is advised that one should be equanimous towards the pair of opposites. Sri Krishna tells you that a person like this achieves the eternal goal. We love stories on FOV Sense, and who hasn't heard the story of Nachiketa and Yama from the Kathopanishad, 5th century BC. Now Nachiketa was the son of sage Vajrashravas. He was performing a sacrifice named Vishwajit Yagna. In this Yagna, the performer had to give away all his wealth. In ancient times, cows were designated as valuable and special possessions. So Vajrashrava, desiring a gift from the gods, decides to donate all his cows to Brahmins. Now Nachiketa was a clever boy in his teens, and he was observing the ritual with innocent interest. And he was surprised to notice his father was giving only the old and disabled cows unable to give milk. Nachiketa, with a pure heart, tells his father, he has heard in this yagna one has to give up all that one possesses. This being the case, to whom will you give me? Vajrashravas did not give any reply to that question. And after some time, Nachiketa asked again, but in vain. He did not get any response from his father. Now for the third time, Nachiketa repeated the same question. His father could not control his temper and he burst out saying to his own son, "I will give you to Yama, the god of death." Nachiketa followed the words of his father and went to the kingdom of death. But during that time, Yama was not present. And no one dared to admit Nachiketa, so he waited near the gate for 3 days and 3 nights without taking a drop of water. When Yama returned and found Nachiketa at his doorstep, he felt sad for keeping a young Brahmin like him waiting for 3 days and 3 nights. He ordered his attendants to fetch holy water to invite and welcome Nachiketa. Now after this hospitality offered to Nachiketa, Yama tells him, "Dear child, I have not done good by keeping you waiting for 3 days, so I request you to ask for 3 boons. Nachiketa tells Yama, "My first boon, O Lord, let my father not be anxious about me, and let his anger against me vanish. When I go back to earth, let him recognize me and receive me back gladly." Yama smiles and says, "Granted." The second boon, "Teach me the proper ritual for the fire sacrifice." Yama agrees and teaches Nachiketa the proper ritual for the fire sacrifice. And it's time for the third boon. "Is there a life beyond death?" Yama says, "Boy, do not ask me about matters of life and death. Even the gods are not clear on all points. Ask me something else, na? I will grant all your wishes other than this." But young Nachiketa persisted and said, "Oh Yama, I only wish to know about the mysteries of life and death and nothing else." Yama tries to offer Nachiketa worldly pleasures so that he may change the nature of his request for the third boon. But Nachiketa is adamant, and he does insist by stating that all the worldly pleasures are short-lived, do not render any long-lasting happiness. Nachiketa was bold enough, saying that one can never reach the eternal through the worldly possessions. So he has renounced all desires for any worldly pleasures and has come here with the hope of winning the eternal through the instructions of the god of death. It was too difficult for Yama to change the mind of this young innocent boy. So he finally agrees to tell him about the mysteries of life and death. And do you know what Yama told Nachiketa that day? We will break it down into 4 simple points for you. Point number 1. The self is immortal. It was not born, nor does it die. It does not come out of anything, neither does anything come out of it. Even if this body is destroyed, the soul is not destroyed. Smaller than the smallest and larger than the largest, this self is living in all beings. Mere reading of the scriptures or intellectual learning cannot realize Atma. One must discriminate the Atma from the body, which is the seat of desire. It reveals itself to the deserving one. And the goal of the wise and intelligent people is to know this Atma. Point number 2. This body is the chariot, intelligence is the driver, the senses are the horses and conscience the rein, and Atma, it is the lord of the chariot. The self is superior to the body, mind and senses. Point number 3. Greater than the individual soul is the enveloping superconsciousness, the seed of everything in the universe. Still greater is the ultimate person than whom there is nothing greater. He is the goal of our aspiration. Once that supreme self is realized, death loses all its terrors and the ones who have realized it have actually become immortal. Point number 4. The path to realization is long and difficult. Inability to realize Brahman results in one trapped in the cycle of birth and rebirth. Understanding the self leads to moksha. A PhD student may have the knowledge of the subject and topic that he or she is researching on, but they cannot be awarded with a degree without a qualified guide. With the direction provided by a guide, the research student learns new concepts about research and gradually, comes to the final thesis submission. This whole journey cannot be completed overnight. It takes at least 2 to 5 years and in some cases nearly 10 years to complete that study. Similarly, just being at that intellectual level and trying to find logic in understanding God, can never result in self-realization. God is truth so does not require any logical explanation, nor any proof of God's existence must be required for anyone. God's presence is to be experienced within and around. This is possible with just a little bit of illumination. Just as a small candle can light up a dark room, similarly, the slight opening of our mind with devotion and belief can lead you to the path of God. We must shift ourselves from our state of intellectual understanding to a state of what I define as the complete surrender to God. This requires consistent and constant practice, does not happen overnight, and one may reach it after many lives. In this world, there are two Purushas or beings, Shara, the perishable, and Akshara, the imperishable. But he is the Paramatman, the Supreme Self, the Purushottama, the being par excellence, different and distinct from them and pervading all the three worlds. Whoever realizes him as such becomes omniscient and worships him in all respects. Thank you so much for listening to us. Next week, we return with a new chapter on FOV Sense. If you liked what you heard, feel free to comment, share, and subscribe to our channel.